Greetings, everyone. It's so glad you can make it today. It's actually a pleasant fall day, and we're glad that you made the time to come out here. We have a wonderful seminar in store for you. And just in case you need to use the restrooms, if you turn to the right down the hall, you'll find the men's bathroom on the first. That'll be the first door on your left of the bathroom stalls. At the far end will be the ladies' bathroom. We also have some other upcoming seminars, a preventing and reversing diabetes seminar. Many people have been blessed, and we have some flyers out up front. That'll be fantastic. And also what will be helpful, we just like to share information that is helpful with you. So there are different seminars that Dr. Dan does present from time to time. And if you'd be so kind as to provide your email, he's not selling it to anyone. He's just trying to let people know. It makes it easy to contact people via email. And that way you can know of any future health presentations that Dr. Dan presents. All right. Well, we have an evening where we have a chance to look forward in hope and look forward to the healthy things that we can learn to help our mind. I would like to invite you to bow your heads with me while I have a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you for the hope when it comes to health. And Father, our prayer is that as we learn the facts tonight, as we learn the details, combined with hope and also by your grace, may our lives be transformed, that we may live within your grace and have a life that is even healthier, for you want us to be in good health. For this is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good afternoon, whatever it is, it's one of those two. So I see some familiar faces and I see some unfamiliar faces. If this is the first time you are here, could you raise your hand? Okay, well, welcome. This is the Morristown Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm, for the unknown, an internal medicine physician. I practice over at the VA clinic here in Morristown. And one day a week, I spend it at U.S. Diabetes Care. So some of you who drive down AJ Highway might see a picture of mine up on a billboard. Feel free to throw darts at the billboard, not at me, okay? All right? So that is one day a week stuff that we do there with diabetes. Diabetes is one of those things that I have a passion for and have spent a lot of time and energy researching and so on. So, like I said, I'm internal medicine, geriatrics, and not that I did any geriatric extra training. It just was an extra certification because of the work that I do at the VA. I was able to sit for the boards and pass those to have another plaque to put on the board. And 3 years ago, I sat for a new certification that is coming out or has come out called lifestyle medicine. And in lifestyle medicine, we like to look at a lot of chronic diseases and see how we can help those chronic diseases without medicines. That is lifestyle, the way we live, okay? So dementia is something that has come very close to my family. My wife right now might be able to make it, but we are caring, or primarily she is caring for both of her parents with dementia. So it's struck very close to home. And as I interact with patients and people and do more diabetes stuff, we see a lot of memory issues. And who has not forgotten something sometime, right? I mean, where did I leave the keys? Where did I put my glasses? Okay. Right? I mean, this is every day for many of us. And the idea is, so what can we do? Is there anything that we can do about this? And so this is the first time I do the seminar, basically hearing from folks and having a personal interest in it. So if I stumble through stuff and figure out the timing isn't quite working right, because this is the first time I'm doing this. So you guys are the guinea pigs, okay? if this were the diabetes seminar, I pretty much know exactly at what minute I'm supposed to be where and can pace myself. So if it's coming to 7:30 and I'm halfway through the slides, we will rush through the others, okay? And if we finish early, we get to go home early, and I get to spend it at home, all right? How's that? We hope to have time for questions at the end. And with that, let's get going. Let's start off here with the brain, because that's where the memory stuff is at. This little organ is 3 pounds in weight. 3 miserable pounds, if you may. But it consumes 20 to 25% of the body's energy. So 3 pounds is consuming a quarter of your body's energy. What does that tell you right there? It's doing a lot of work day and night. It's doing a lot of work day and night. Estimates, 87 billion neurons, those nerve cells, and each of those nerve cells will have connections anywhere from just 2 simple connections from one neuron touching another neuron over here to as many as 15,000 connections. One neuron touching other 15,000 neurons. And we'll see why that is important as we go on. And somebody had the patience of kind of estimating and putting capillary together to capillary. And the estimate is that if we put all the blood vessels that are in the brain, that will travel 400 miles. That means the brain is a highly vascular organ, a highly active organ, and as such, it is susceptible to a lot of changes that are happening in our health, okay? So, a few statistics just to get a feel. Well, I popped that one first there, but who knows somebody with dementia? Okay, so that's pretty much everybody. Estimate is about 6 million people in the US with dementia right now. And if you're over age 65, you've got a 1 in 10 chance of having dementia. So that's a lot of us, as I'm getting close to that age. At a cost of $290 billion in what we call direct costs, and an additional $240 billion in indirect costs, lost wages and things of that sort. By 2050, the estimate is that there will be 16 million people with dementia and costing us $1.1 trillion to take care of those folks. So, I think there are many reasons why we want to do something about this, if there is something to do about it. And so we're going to start off here with some myths, and then we'll give you some answers to those myths. Because if you are like most people, you think, oh, well, nothing I can do. I'm just a sitting duck. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Okay. So myth number 1 is that Alzheimer's cannot be prevented. If I put it there as a myth, what does that tell you? That it's not true, okay? So finally, we are getting organizations, including the American Alzheimer's Association and their annual conference a few years ago, starting to put out in their presentations, including the lead presentations in that particular conference, that particular year, where they said lifestyle interventions can offset elevated Alzheimer's risk. And they even, in some of the presentations, saying lifestyle prevention is the new treatment. Okay? So, that gets to be promising. Myth number 2. Alzheimer's starts with symptoms of forgetfulness, right? By that time, as they say, is it the cow or the horse that's out of the barn? One of those two animals is out of the barn, okay? So Alzheimer's, the forgetfulness is the tip of stuff that has been happening way before. The real process started 20 to 30 years ago. So if you are 40 years old, this is a good time. If you are 30, that's even a better time. If you're 20, that's a fantastic time to start working at preventing dementia, because the process starts way, way back there. So, October 1992. Do you remember what you did that year, that month? All right. How many of you guys remember Y2K? Okay. Where did you guys spend December 31st going into January 1st of Y2K? At church, somebody? Where were others? At home, okay. Waiting here to see if we disintegrate, right, or something. Okay. So, all right, let's think Y2K. What happened that year is affecting your health now. Can you erase the past? Can you do something about today? Okay, so if we do something today, it will help tomorrow and down the road. So that's why we're here. All right, we can't fix Y2K time stuff wherever you spent New Year's Day that year. All right, myth number 3. Doctors have a pill for everything, right? Your ear itches, we got a pill for that. You got a rash, you got a cream for that. Your heart hurts, we got a pill for that. You got cholesterol issues, you got a pill for that. You got warts, we got stuff for that. So we got medicines for just about everything. So wouldn't it make sense that Big Pharma have a pill for Alzheimer's, right? And we have pills. How good are they? Not very. In fact, the current medicines that we have, at best, will slow the progression for 6 months to a year. In general, there are exceptions, and in my 30-plus years of practice, I have one patient that it was a wonder drug, and I've tried it on hundreds, okay? So millions of dollars have been spent trying to find that miracle medicine drug that we can reverse the forgetfulness issues, and all these different research projects looking at these amyloid plaque. How can we destroy, eliminate amyloid plaque? These tau tangles, stuff that's happening in the brain. When they do the autopsy studies, they can see all these different pathology changes on the brain. And we figure, okay, that is not in a normal brain, so that must be the problem. And they spent millions of dollars trying to fix that problem, and we can't. And we'll find out why. In fact, it's so disappointing for even big pharma like Pfizer that in 2018, after spending and having a whole research team on this, they said, forget it, we're wasting our time, we can make money someplace else, like the COVID vaccine. So that's what Pfizer did. Okay. And so they pull out from one stuff that's not going to make them money, and they pulled out their entire research team that was doing Alzheimer's investigation stuff. Okay. And we'll explain a little bit why the one pill approach is a faulty approach. Okay. Myth number 4. Your risk of getting Alzheimer's or other dementias is mostly driven by your genes. ApoE4, a bunch of these other genes, or luck. Well, the fact is that only about 3% of Alzheimer's cases are driven by genes that have a nearly 100% penetrance, which means that if you have that gene, you pretty much have a 100% chance of coming down with dementia at an early age. Okay. Now that's 3% of the people. That means the other 90+ percent of the folks, there may be some component of a gene, including the ApoE4 gene, but what we've come to find out is even if you have the 2 copies of the ApoE4, which is the common one that is looked at, 50+% of the folks never develop dementia. That means that there are other lifestyle things that are either triggering it to turn on or triggering it to keep it turned off. Okay. So again, that means the majority, even if you have a bad deck of cards, okay, the majority of dementias can be avoidable. Now, let me, Jeff, if I could ask you a favor. I believe in the annex we have a bottle of water. One of those keys will open it. So if you've got a bad deck of genes, you can still do something about it. Okay? So that's the other thing I was wanting to say. You can do, because we live in a sinful world, you can do everything absolutely perfectly, and guess what? You'll still die. Okay? As far as I know, since the beginning of Earth's history, there's Elijah, Enoch. Is there somebody else that did not die? Even Jesus died. I rose again, but he also died. So mortality is pretty much certain. Okay, we all are going to die, but most of us, if we're going to die, want to die feeling like Moses. You hear in the Bible, he went up the mountain. He could still see the promised land. He could still see very well. And he goes up there and dies. Now, that's a real full life. Okay. So don't think that because you do everything right, you're not going to come down with some disease. We live in a sinful world. That's the fact of the matter. Okay, but we want to cut down our risks, right? Most of the time, if you stop at a red light, you're not going to get hit, right? But sometimes somebody didn't see that red light, right, and rams into you, okay? But you were doing the right thing, and most of the time, if you do the right thing, you're going to get decent results, okay? So that's the idea and concept. All right, so the other 97% or more are still avoidable. Genes only confer risk, but they are connected here with lifestyle stuff. So myth number 5. You're getting old, just deal with it, all right? You're going to be forgetting stuff. You're going to forget where you put your keys. You're going to forget people's names. You're going to forget, etc. Put whatever you have on your list. Now, yes, as we age, certain cognitive abilities may slow down or decline, but often this is going to be with other environmental or lifestyle factors that are the driving force. It's not simply getting old. And here, there are 3 key ingredients that we want to explore that are going to optimize your brain capacity. First one is complexity. Second one is challenge. And the third one is purpose. Let's break these out some more. First, complexity. When we think of complexity, we want to look at real life activities that are going to engage all parts or as many parts of the brain as possible. So, we have some people who know music in this room. We have a piano teacher. There might be more piano teachers here. Or how many of you play a musical instrument? Okay, so as you play a musical instrument, particularly if you're having to read the music, you are involving vision, you're involving motor here, you're involving hearing, because you say, boy, that chord sure didn't sound right. Okay, so you're involving multiple parts of the brain, okay? Real life activities that encompass all parts of the brain. The more complex, the better, okay? So what we want to have you start thinking about right now, if you know a language, learn a second language. If that one has come easy, push it a little further. Try a new sport that involves physical activity, not the sports that many kids do on this stuff, okay? Okay? We want you to do a sport that you can do. So one of my patients is a tennis player, actually a very good tennis player, and she tells me, Dr. Castor, you got to try pickleball. Pickleball, okay. So I tried pickleball a few months ago, and that stuff is addicting, okay? Try something new, something different, something that you've not done before, so that it challenges you. That's the whole idea. Thank you. They ask you at work or at church, and we've got this new project. Can you lead it? Say yes. Unless your calendar, unless you've said yes too many times, okay, which sometimes does happen, okay? But learn to say yes to new projects that they ask you, that you say, I've never done it before. Precisely, that's why we want you to do it, because we want to challenge the brain, okay? Volunteer someplace you haven't been before. Learn new games. Challenge the brain. Again, complexity is what we want. The second aspect that we want is challenge. it's not enough for something to be complex because, so my sons play piano. And if you hear my oldest son, which is the most musically gifted of the three I have, he will play these intricate pieces of music, these really fast pieces, okay? But if you were at home, you hear him go over it over and over and over and over again until he can do this almost in his sleep. So it was complex, and it still is complex, but because he's repeated it so often, it comes natural. It's no longer challenging for him. He needs to find a different piece that he hasn't played that now makes him do the fingering a little differently. Get what I'm saying? So complexity is part one. If you do that over and over and over again, it may be very complex, but it's no longer a challenge. It needs to be something new again that keeps challenging you, keeps challenging the brain, and pushing it here to the next level. So I said, 2 languages, good. Push it to where you're a master at the 2 languages. And you can start pulling out the dictionary and finding out the new words and expanding the vocabulary instead of what is happening to our society where we are shrinking the vocabulary in our way of speaking, okay? So, the sign language. Yes. There's a 3rd language, right? So we're here in Morristown. About 20-25% of the population here in Morristown is Hispanic, which means they speak Spanish. You can just drive up and down Cumberland, and you will see a lot of Spanish stores, right? So, how many of you know Spanish? Okay, let me challenge you. Yes, we're here in the South, and yes, we're in the United States. But it is perfectly okay for you to challenge your brain and learn that 2nd language, okay? And if Spanish gets to be easy, why not French? Or the Chinese are taking over the world. Let's learn some Chinese, okay? And I had some other stuff there. Number 3, purpose. Even working out at the gym, yes. That's the concept. Push yourself. Go to the next level. Don't get comfortable with what you have. You want to keep challenging, keep pushing, keep doing complex stuff, okay? And backing up in there, so I said real life. So how many of you have seen these books at the store that says Sudoku? You seen those? Okay. Just a few. Really? You guys haven't seen Sudoku? Okay. All right. So does that challenge the brain? Yeah. Is it real life? I'm not going to make a whole lot of use out of Sudoku. But I can use playing a musical instrument. I can use a new language. I can use a new sport. I can use new words, okay? So that's what I'm referring to here, to real life, something that's helpful. I suppose Sudoku helps somebody. I mean, the publisher, if nobody else, of those books. Okay. Try to make it real here for you, okay? So if you're into gardening, how many are into gardening, okay? All right, so figure out what other plants can you grow in here. Challenge yourself. Let's do a greenhouse. Let's do some winter gardening. So one of my projects and dreams is to have a greenhouse with some citrus trees in there. So try something different, okay? Push yourself. Next one, purpose. What's this for? I mean, what benefit is there for me to have filled out that complete book of Sudoku, okay? Is there purpose? Is there value in what you do? So we all have a God-given purpose to live. And if what you are doing matches and fits your purpose, it's easier for you to stay motivated and excited about what you're doing, okay, and what you're getting involved in. So that is the concept there. Motivation will come much more naturally. All right, next myth. Your brain stops growing at a certain age. How many of you have heard that? The neurons you got, that's what you're stuck with. That's all you got, okay? So there's partial truth to that, but there's a big piece that is ignored. And so we may lose some neurons. You got the max capacity, and we may lose some neurons. But here's the fascinating thing, is that, and this is where the new research over the last actually several years, more than 5, this word neuroplasticity has been brought about and discussed about, okay? Neuro for nerve, plasticity, think plastic. We can reshape it, okay? So we see that in people who've had a stroke, right? People have a stroke, they lost function, and if they work at it, they can begin getting the function of that arm, that leg, that speech to varying degrees, okay? Depending as to a whole host of other factors. Okay, so we know that we can grow new nerve connections and build up some of that, what we call synaptic neuroplasticity, and that is at any age. So anybody over 80 years old here? Okay, so we have a couple of hands. You can still build new nerve connections. That should excite you. It excites me if it doesn't excite you, okay? That means you have the potential to still grow. So, how do we do some of this? Exercise. So aerobic exercise does several things to help the brain and its function. Number one, it enhances brain connectivity. And we'll expand about on this on the second part here coming up. So, but I just want you to put that down for right now. Exercise, particularly aerobic exercise, helps with the brain connectivity. Number two, it improves the integrity of the brain's white matter. So up on top, let's see if my laser point works. Okay, so that's, see, everybody forgets something. I forgot to bring the brain illustration I was going to have from the office. So this is a side view of the brain. I'm going to try this. So the brain has 2 hemispheres, 2 halves, and they're pretty much exactly the same. And if I were to so I've got the 2 hemispheres here, and they're kind of like this. If I were to cut here in the middle, now you put it on the side, and that's this image that you're seeing here, okay? Right And the brain has got all these undulations, these hills and valleys up and down that add surface area. And that outer part, that outer rim, is what we call the gray matter. So if you've heard that terminology, and it's gray because precisely the color is a little darker than the center section. And that's where the nucleus of the nerve, the what do I call it? The brain of the neuron, okay, of each cell. The main part of the cell is in the nucleus. The white matter are now the wires going out to connect to another part of the brain. Follow? Everybody with me? I just see a few heads nodding. Everybody with me on that, or do I need to explain it again? Got it? Okay. So we have gray matter on the outside, the nucleus of every neuron. The white matter in the center is the highways, the axons that we call it, the branches that go out and touch another neuron. Okay. So what exercise does, it think of these wires as, in a simplistic way, an electric wire. That electric wire needs some insulation. And if that insulation gets peeled, you're going to start getting, guess what? Short circuits, right? Think of a peeled electric wire. It begins to give little flashes, and you don't like that, okay? The brain doesn't either. So exercise improves that covering, okay, that insulation of that wire, okay, which is going to help then with brain function. Third thing that aerobic exercise does, it promotes the growth of new brain connections. All right, so I told you at the beginning that a neuron can have anywhere from as little as 2 connections to as many as 15,000. That means that as time goes on, as I exercise, I can develop new connections with another neuron. And you'll see why that is important in a little bit, okay? But the more connected each neuron is, the better you're going to do. So the other thing that it does, this is absolutely fascinating. So the brain produces these growth factors, the most common one called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And when we exercise, these levels of these growth factors increase. And in one study, as much as nearly 100% from baseline. That should excite you, okay? That should make you want to start exercising right now, okay? As that's going to help your brain. The other thing, and every runner knows this, exercising increases blood flow. How many miles of blood vessels do you have in your brain? 400. So if exercise is going to improve your blood flow, guess what's going to happen to the brain? Better blood flow. Better blood flow means better health, okay? There's a Bible story that says life is in the blood, okay? So we need good circulation, okay? So the exercise is helping here at your brain getting more circulation, more oxygen, and improving that way. And the other one is exercise decreases inflammation. We won't spend a whole lot of time on this in the diabetes seminar. We spend a lot more time here explaining this process, but we don't have 6 weeks to be here for that. And I want you to write this down. If there's one thing that you change after tonight's talk, is that if you were not exercising, you will begin to do that. If you're already doing it, good for you. We'll ramp it up and make sure that you're at the mark that has been shown to be ideal for brain health, okay? But exercise appears to be the most significant lifestyle factor when it comes to generating new cell connections in the brain. In fact, in particular studies showing up to a 3 times increase in connections, okay? So this is absolutely fascinating, okay, and exciting. So when they tell you can't do anything here to slow your aging brain, say, no, the research is different. Okay. Myth number 7. If I could just have enough willpower and motivation, I can make anything happen. Problem is that many times a month goes by and that motivation disappears, right? New Year's resolutions is a classic example. Yes, Sandy. So how long do New Year's resolutions last? Lots of motivation, right? You saw all these videos. In fact, you got it as a Christmas gift, these exercise video stuff for you to do, right? And what happens to January 4? Still hasn't been opened, okay? And then you give it as a gift next year to somebody else. So it is helpful to understand how habits are formed. And this is an area that I'm learning little bits and pieces here in the conferences. And in 2 months, I'll be going to another conference here on American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And this is something that I still need a lot of learning, is how do we help people change? Okay. It is more than just willpower and getting them motivated. And suffice it to say for right now, the most important way, or the most helpful way that is being found to help at promoting change, is creating these SMART goals, which we'll talk about more at the end, okay? And these SMART goals stand for, they have to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And at the end, we'll come back to that as well. Okay? So this is also something I just learned a few weeks ago. And many of you have come to our diabetes seminar. This is something that I will start telling the attendees for that seminar as well. Many times we focus on, okay, I'm going to, we say, I'm going to do burst training for 20 minutes, 3 times a day, not 3 times, 3 times a week. What is most helpful is to break down the big goal. So instead of me aiming here for, I'm going to lose 40 pounds in the next 6 months or 2 years, let's make it a little bit more realistic, okay? If we can set it into a small goal, at the end of this month, I'll lose 2 pounds. So at the end of the month, you reached the 2-pound weight loss, and you say, yes. Every time you say yes, that's a dopamine hit. And those who've come to the diabetes seminar know that dopamine is one of those pleasure hormones, okay? So we get that pleasure. Ooh, I liked that. That means for next month, let me see if I can lose another 2 pounds. It's not a huge goal. It's a small goal, something that I'm pretty sure I can achieve. And every time I achieve that little small goal, it's, yes, okay, I can do a little bit more. And it is that continuous dopamine hit, pleasure hit, that keeps me going, okay? And that is part of the new science that is coming out here on behavior change. All right, so there are 3 main sources of, that I used and listened to a whole bunch of lectures and stuff. So I'm showing these here to you. The first one is the Alzheimer's Solution by Doctors Dean and Ayesha Sherzai. It's a husband and wife neurology team. The husband, Dean, has been at the NIH and trained in a bunch of places. Ayesha was actually a Loma Linda graduate, residency program, and then Columbia in New York. And they've come back to Loma Linda. They have actually the Alzheimer's Center, Dementia Center at Loma Linda. And they bring out an interesting concept that those of you who come to the diabetes seminar in the future or have come before will recognize some of these terms. They say there are 4 main risk factors. There's oxidation, there's inflammation, there's glucose dysregulation, and there's lipid dysregulation. Let me just break it down into other terms. Oxidation, think of rusting. And that'll be session 5 in the diabetes seminar. Think of inflammation, also session 5 in the diabetes seminar. Think inflamed, you bang your finger with a hammer, it gets red, hot, swollen, inflamed. Not good, okay? Lipid is fat, it's cholesterol. Fat and cholesterol managed inappropriately, not working the way it's supposed to. And the other one is glucose dysregulation, sugar issues. And we'll touch on that a little bit more. So this is a copy of their book, okay? And because 2 of them are neurologists, they came up with a nice little acronym called NEURO for the 5 things that you can do to help preserve your memory or to improve your memory, so prevent and reverse that memory loss, okay? N is for nutrition, E is for exercise, U is for unwind or stress management, R is for restore or restorative sleep or rest, and the O is for optimize, meaning keep challenging the brain, keep pushing it, okay? So that is one area that we're going to touch on some of these things. The other book is this one, Memory Rescue, Daniel Amen. How many of you have heard that name, Daniel Amen? Okay, several hands. Daniel Amen is actually a psychiatrist who has the largest library of brain scans in the world, and he has taken the approach that one depression does not equal the next depression, that every brain is unique as to how it works and how it perfuses. So he does SPECT scans on brain SPECT scans on his patients, and out of that he can then work on treatment. And his team, he's actually trained many neurologists. He started out in Southern California and now has a clinic here in Atlanta, has one in Chicago, and a couple of other places which I don't remember because they're not close to us, so I've not bothered to worry about it. So he uses, he's got lots of stuff on YouTube. Yep. So his little acrostic is bright minds, okay? Things that you can do here to help your memory. And the B is for blood flow. We talked about the importance of vascularity, of circulation, retirement and aging. So if you retire and get on a rocking chair and that's all you do, that's not a good thing, okay? Inflammation, genetics, head trauma. He's actually a big proponent that boxing should be banned and football is next to it too. And he even says soccer, my sport, okay, be careful with headers, because every time you bang your head, you're shaking those neurons and you're creating some trauma that down the road is going to affect your memory. You're basically rattling the cage there and loosening connections. Something that I'm trying to tell my boys to do less headers. Doesn't always work. Toxins. And we won't spend a whole lot of time on his program, but there's a lot of food for thought, if you could say that. Mental health and how depression untreated is going to affect memory. Immunity, infection issues nowadays, not just EB virus, and now we know of COVID affecting brain fog and things of that sort. Neurohormone deficiencies, where we know if hormones are out of balance, it's going to affect the brain. And common ones are thyroid, but there are many other hormones that will affect memory. And diabetes, a concept that we talk about in session 1 of the diabetes seminar. It's this combination of diabetes, of sugar metabolism that has gone wrong, and obesity, where we've gained extra weight and the body is having to compensate with that. Because the brain is such a vascular organ, and because it is consuming 20 to 25% of the body's energy, you can see why, as a diabetic, if you have sugar issues, it will affect the brain function. Does it make sense? If you've got too much sugar, which we know is toxic, and that brain is getting bombarded with that, it is going to mess up the way the brain works, okay? So much so that some have said that there is a component of dementia called type 3 diabetes, because it is also an insulin-resistant condition. We can explain that some more there in the 2 weeks from now, the diabetes seminar. And then he addresses sleep issues as well as a problem, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And this book, I didn't have time to pick up at, I have it in the diabetes clinic. I was at the VA today. So that's in my other library. It's The End of Alzheimer's. Dale Bredesen is a researcher neurologist, and out of UCLA and UC San Francisco. He's got some fascinating data. His book is a little bit more technical. It's there supposedly here for the lay, but halfway through, I said, there's no way I can recommend this to my patients because I'm having to, man, I've got to chew through this stuff, okay? But he has a fascinating concept. And this is where this idea that I mentioned earlier, this idea that we have that one drug is going to solve the issue is erroneous. It just won't work because he's identified at least 72 factors that are potentially involved in memory loss. Okay, so as we design a drug, and the researchers, test in mice, they look at this pathway, and they figure that out, and they go to human studies, and they give it to the human, and nothing happens. It's because that was only touching upon one of the 72 pathways. What about the other 71? Nothing was done. Therefore, no change, no help for the patient. You might get lucky, like I did with this particular patient, where he was no longer able to drive, and I put him on one of these medicines, and bingo, I hit the magic bullet. It was the missing link for him, and he got into driving again, and memory came back, and he was doing fantastic. But that is the exception, okay? Vast majority are not going to get much help out of these medicines long term. You might get 6 months, 12 months of a little decline, and it's a pretty consistent theme. So this is very helpful for me to realize that dementia is a multifaceted disease, okay? Which means I need to look at fixing and addressing as many of these factors that I can. The more I clean up, the more I optimize, the better chance I have of preserving my memory. You with me? Does that make sense? Okay. So that's, and if you want to get the book, you can get the book. I have no connections. I don't get a penny from this. Okay. So, but I'll tell you, it's a little tougher read. That's the summary of it. Okay. The Cliff Notes version for you. Okay. So those of you who know me, I like to see what the Bible has to say with health. And I found this fascinating. In the Garden of Eden, it was the perfect environment. And if you look at Genesis 1:29, actually, why don't you guys open your Bibles there? This is not going to be Bible study time. We're still in health, but it's very nice to see what the Bible has to say. So Genesis 1:29, and God said, "See, I have given," turn the page, "I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food." Okay, so what was the nutrition in the Garden of Eden? What grows on trees? Fruits, and what else? nuts. Okay, so fruits and nuts. And what else did God say there? Herb that yields seed. So wheat, the grains, wheat, barley, millet, and so on. Okay, and he also later on it says he gave them the tree of life. So that is the ideal diet, the nutrition, the end part of this. Okay, and on the diabetes seminar, we go into Genesis 3 and 6 and so on, explaining some more of the diet stuff. But that's the ideal nutrition. E, exercise. We go to chapter 2, verse 15. It says there that the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it. Was he just there on the rocker or on his hammock? No. What did he have to do? Work. Exercise. Number 3, unwind. Do you guys have any idea what the most relaxing colors are? Green, blue. What was Adam and Eve surrounded? What colors were they surrounded by? Green and blue, with touches of other colors there to spice it up, right? Okay, so that is wonderful stress management. If you guys want to stress out, go to New York City, okay? Times Square at 3 in the afternoon. And talk about stress, okay? You want relaxation? Go to Newport, Smoky Mountains, okay? Where you have waterfalls and streams and greenery and blue and stuff, okay? R for rest. Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. And the heavens, thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished. On the seventh day, God ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. Rest. Rest is important for health, and that was put right there from the beginning. And then the O, optimize, a challenge. If you look at chapter 1, verse 26, it says, then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. And the other thing is chapter 2. There's another verse 28 there that you can look up. Chapter 2, verse 20. So Adam gave names to all cattle, to the birds of the air, to every beast of the field. And it goes on, ... Adam was challenged right from the beginning. Okay, God brings here this critter here and says, okay, what are you going to call this, Adam? How about zebra? All right, okay. So he's challenged right from the beginning. The principles there of brain health were right there in the Garden of Eden. All right, so in the next, whatever time it takes me to get to the end of the slides, refill, please. Thank you. Breakthrough number 1. So, adopt the optimal dietary pattern. And when we talk about dietary pattern, again, we will see this, I think it's session 3 or 4 in the diabetes seminar. We talk about dietary patterns. And just so that you get a little feel for it, when you think of Italian food, what comes to mind? Spaghetti and pizza, okay? If you think of Mexican food, what comes to mind? Beans and rice with a corn tortilla in different shapes. When you think of American food, what comes to mind? Hamburgers, hot dogs, all right, fries. Got to have the fries, and you got to have the Coke or Pepsi, depending as to what camp you're in, right? So food patterns. So what is the optimal food pattern for the brain? And we'll talk about that here for diabetes in a few weeks. But for the brain, there's research that was done at University of Chicago called the MIND diet. And the MIND diet is basically a hybrid of the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, which is basically promoting or emphasizing whole foods, plant foods. It's limiting the amount of meat, dairy, and processed foods. So, University of Chicago took 1,000 patients between the ages of 58 to 98, and they saw what they ate, okay? And those individuals who followed pretty well this MIND diet, as described above, had a 53% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's down the road than those who did not adhere to it. And notice that last section. Their cognitive functioning was similar to someone 7.5 years younger. Okay. So, can you do something about your forgetfulness now? Yes. Okay. Yes, the process started 20, 30 years ago, but you can do something about it now. They found that even if there was moderate adherence where you slipped a lot of the time, okay, you still had a 35% risk reduction in memory loss and dementia. Now, the interesting thing is, again, the MIND diet still is not the optimal diet that God gave Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, which means it still included poultry, it still included saturated fats, it still included other not optimal foods, and it did not emphasize including things that we will talk about in a few minutes. Thank you, Brad. Just put them on there. Did not include things that we'll talk in a few minutes that we know are helpful for the brain. So if the MIND diet was able to reduce dementia 53% of the time, and you get a brain that's 7.5 years younger, that means if we tweak things even further and make it even more optimum, you can do better. So that is kind of exciting. Breakthrough number 2. Forge cross-brain connections. So I mentioned this here briefly, that brain has these different parts in it: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe, and you got the hippocampus, limbic system, and all these other things in between, and they're all connected in different ways. So if we can build and increase connections, one part with another, we are going to basically be increasing our brain capacity, our cognitive, our memory capacity. And we know that any given neuron can have up to 15,000 different connections, okay? So, when you increase the number of connections, this is basically protecting you from damage. So, where I live, we have 5 ways out from our home. That is, if I go left from my driveway, one house I can go one route this way, another road this way. If I go right, I've got a road that goes up this way. I've got a road that goes straight, and I've got a road that goes this way. It means I have 5 ways of escape or of entrance. How has that been helpful for me? Well, it so happens that Tennessee has some storms. And there was one day that we were trying to come to church. We went down one road, and there was a tree down. Couldn't go through. Let's back up. The other road, oh, that one was open. So we made it to church. The problem was getting back. Because when we're heading back, route number 1 was still closed. Route number 2 was now flooded. Route number 3, we couldn't get to because that was flooded too. I was down to now just 2 routes left. Route number 4 was the way home. Okay. See my point? The more connections you have, so you fry this one here because you had a little high blood pressure for a little too long. But you got all these other redundancy connections that, oh, so we lost that one here. Minor issue, because I can go around it by other means. Okay? So as you increase the brain connections, that is going to basically help you preserve your brain function. And so what if you have a little amyloid plaque here? So what if you have a little tau tangle there? Or you had a little high blood pressure there? Because you've created over time, and because you've learned that extra language, I'll get you all into learning Spanish here maybe, okay? Or this new musical instrument, okay? This something that's challenging. You're now creating extra connections that are going to, in the long run, protect you and help you. So the more connections you make into different parts of the brain. Let me just tell you this other secret. I don't see too many young folks here, but they taught this to me after I was done with medical school. I was an attending staff by this time, and I said, they should have taught this to me here when I was in medical school. Little techniques here to memorize and learn stuff. It's basically including other parts of the brain, okay? So as I read, or as you read, you're seeing, get a highlighter or a pencil or a pen, and you start underlining. And you say, I like that word, that will help me remember this. Now, you add to this now smell. Have you guys seen these smelly colors, highlighters? Okay, so the red has now got a strawberry flavor. So as you highlight certain words with red, now you're including another part of the brain. Okay, you have the visual, you're repeating it in your mind, you've got the visual, the color, and now you smell. You're adding connections, okay? The more connections you add, the easier it's going to be here for you to remember stuff, okay? So what I'm saying is build connections. Try to tag it onto something. So I must say I still struggle with doing this, and the classic example is names. In fact, I tell people, don't mind me. I'm going to ask your name, and I've asked it already enough times that I remember your name, Bob, okay? But honestly, it'll take me a good 10 times to remember somebody's name. How I get around it at times is, so we had a new family show up here a few weeks ago, and one of the kids' name is Brooklyn. You know how I remember that? It says, oh, I was born in Manhattan. I can remember that. What did I just do? Connection. find another way to tag it, okay? So as you do that, you create extra connections, okay? You will be able to remember stuff, okay? All right, breakthrough number 3. Your brain loves complexity. So you see 2 drivers there. One's a taxi driver and the other one is a bus driver. They did this study in London, 2006, and they looked at taxi drivers versus bus drivers, and they looked at their brain images found. Now, I've not been into Europe yet, if we ever go. It's mistaken. We landed in Frankfurt Airport. So I can say I stepped on Germany, but that's the extent of it. Okay. So any of you been to London? They tell me that the streets of London are a mishmash. There's just really no rhyme or reason. It's just sort of like Boston. Okay, Boston is like that. I mean, they're triangles and they go this way, and it's so for taxi drivers in 2006, when there was no GPS and they had to take people from place A to place B, they had to figure out all these routes in this crazy city layout, okay? Versus the bus driver. What's the bus driver's route? Same route, day in, day out, okay? Now, who had a bigger brain? Taxi drivers. A particular part of the brain was even bigger yet. The complexity required there enhanced those connections and made that brain bigger. So the brain loves complexity. Don't let yourself or your kids or your grandkids say, that's too hard. Yes, that's why I want you to do it, okay? So the brain loves complexity. So there are, again, some of these complex challenges. We can call it good stress, where you're building these new neural connections across different parts of the brain. Singing, playing a musical instrument, learning a new language, etc. And so I say, the route home. When you leave this place, you know how to get home, right? How many times have you been driving from place A to place B that's familiar, and you kind of forgot some in-between sections? When you get to place B, it says, oh man, that's right, I already passed that, right? Almost a little scary. Why? Because you're an automatic. Okay. So challenge yourself every once in a while to say, hey, I'm going to take a new route home. And if you get lost, even better, okay? As now you have to figure your way home, okay? Which shoe goes on first in the morning? Which leg in the pant goes on first? Okay. See these patterns that we have? Just change it up, mix it up. Do something different. Try eating with your left hand every once in a while, okay? Well, so, have a bib if you need be. Okay, if it's going to spaghetti, that's all right. Try something different. Challenge that brain. Okay. I don't do the dishes. No, I do the dishes. I shouldn't say I don't do the laundry. No, I do the laundry too, so that's okay. So, yes.
That little bus that goes around, and he's never been on a little bus like that. I said, one day we're going to go on the bus and just go to different places around town and get off and then get back on again. So he can learn how to do that. Because how do you learn how to do something like that? You have it right here now in Morristown. And they're expanding the stops, the number of places they're going to stop. It's not that expensive to ride on there either. It isn't. Yeah.
And how often do they go by? So if I get lost, well, how long do I have to wait for the next one? About every 30 minutes? Oh, wow. Okay. So, all right. So we should make that a challenge for everybody. Get on the bus route, get off on the next stop, walk around, and find your way back, hopefully, and on to the next one. Yeah. All right. And while you do that, you do breakthrough number 4, which is take brisk walks. Okay. Brisk walks can reduce Alzheimer's risk by, what does it say? Up to 48%. When you walk, even in the form of a daily walk, we talked about this hormone. BDNF gets pumped up. BDNF is that fertilizer for the brain, okay? So you want fertilizer for your neurons, exercise, walk, whatever a brisk walk is for you, okay? Hopefully you have decent knees that you can do a brisk walk, okay? Where we want you at the end a little huffy and puffy, okay? If you got bad knees or a bad foot or whatnot, as we say in the diabetes seminar, there's got to be some muscle that you can move, okay? And move it, okay? But if you can do that walking, and most of you walked in today, this evening, so do a walk. And that will begin to do wonders at strengthening that brain and creating that cognitive reserve and that plasticity that we were talking about. Now, notice this, I have it up there yet? No. Even moderate exercise has been shown to boost the growth of new blood vessels to supply the billions of neurons in your brain. Okay, so there are 3 exercise strategies. Number 1, aerobic. I'm missing one. Hey. I see what happened. I forgot to change the slide. Okay, I'm missing something. There's 1, 2, and 3. 1, aerobic. 2 is strength. 3, flexibility. Let's tackle aerobic exercise. How many of you are already exercising? Okay, so here's your goal. If you're already doing it, if you're not, next time I ask, you'll have your hand up. Okay, 25 to 30 minutes, 5 to 6 days a week. You want to be aiming for 150 minutes. And they say ideal is someplace between there. You need a minimum of 150 minutes, aiming here for 300 minutes a week. So if 300 minutes a week sounds like too much, we said break it down into small sections. 25 minutes, 6 days a week, translates into, there's some mathematicians here, 25, 150. There we go. Thank you, accountant. So you break it down into small sections. You say, hey, I don't have 25 minutes in a day. Well, do you have 5 minutes in the morning, 10 in the afternoon, and another 10 in the evening? Okay, you're breaking it down into smaller chunks. Find those small chunks that are achievable, that you can do, And if you say, I don't have that, all I have is 5 minutes a day, take those 5 minutes, because better 5 minutes than no minutes, right? So that's what we want to encourage you to be doing. Number 2 is a strength or resistance training. Now this I found interesting. Leg strengthening exercise is strongly correlated with the size of your brain. So you see those muscular guys with these big old chests there? They're got small brains. You want them with big legs, okay? Now those are the guys with the big brain, okay? Now here's the other. This I found fascinating because my work is in front of a computer with patients all day long. So I exercise, and this study tells me that I did my 30-minute workout, but if I just sit around for 4 to 6 hours, I've lost the benefits of my 30-minute workout. So what's the solution? Take a break. So it doesn't have to be a whole lot. 30 seconds. Stand up. And fortunately, I can do this. Stand up, walk the patient to the door, say, good to see you. The clerk will check you out. We'll see you next time. Hope you have a good Christmas. I'll see you next time. And I've got my 30-second break. Stand up. Now I can sit in front of that computer again. Okay. So guess what that is? Flexibility. Okay. If you didn't get it from the picture, you got it from the word. So it's not just one thing. Ideally, again, I'm giving you as many things. If you remember Bredesen, 72 factors, the more you tackle, the better you're going to do, okay? So it's great if you can exercise. We want to challenge you some more. Put a little resistance training in there too, a little muscle building, a little weight lifting. And by the way, when you're doing this weightlifting stuff, you don't have to be grunting to create a hernia, okay? That's not any good for you. It may be good for the surgeon who repairs the hernia, but not for you. Okay, so lightweight, lots of repetitions, okay? So I tell patients that I much prefer to have them, do the leg raises 80 to 100 times. No weight. That got to be easy. All right, now put a 5-pound bag there and do another 80 to 100, okay? I'd rather them do that than to have 50 pounds where they go, okay. So aerobic, muscle strength, weight stuff, and flexibility. What you can do stretches, and if we had time, we'd do some of these, but I'm looking at the time, and I do want to get home, and I'm sure you do too. Neck, shoulder, upper back, wrists, lower back, stretching the hips, and just you can go to YouTube and see all kinds of different examples of these. And we have some PT guys here that if you want a little demonstration at the parking lot, they can probably entertain you and do some of that with you afterwards. Okay, so before you go home, maybe we can have Mark and Douglas out there doing some stretching stuff with people. Okay. Breakthrough number 6. replace bad stress with good stress. Is there any such thing as a stress-free life? No, we need a little stress. Eustress, good stress, that it comes under different terms, okay? The body responds well to that. Did you know that the astronauts, when they are out in outer space, they lose bone density? Why? There's no stress on those bones, okay? The body needs some kind of stress in all its different functions, okay? So we need some stress, but we want it to be good stress, those things that move us toward your goal and your purpose. The good stress will make you stronger, more vital, more resilient, and is going to be helpful here for learning and growing. Bad stress comes from those experiences that drive you away, that suck energy from you, that you want to run away from, that overwhelms you, and so on. So too much good stress can turn into bad stress, right? So it's finding that balance. Breakthrough number 7. Eat foods that your brain loves. What do you see there? Blueberries. Okay, so if you have blueberries on a regular basis, and by a regular basis in the particular study, it was a couple of times a week, so it doesn't have to be even daily, okay? A couple of times a week, you're going to delay your cognitive decline by as much as 2.5 years. Not too shabby for a great fruit. That tastes very good, right? Now, for some folks, if one serving, so a serving of blueberries is a half a cup. Yeah. So I'm curious. I should have asked this earlier. So I got interviewed at WCRK. Did any of you guys hear the interview at WCRK? No? Okay. Yes? Okay. So I mentioned on there is a food substance that if you eat it, you can delay your cognitive decline by 11 years. You guys interested in knowing? You'll have to come back to next week. No. Green leafy vegetables. Who would know? Is that being promoted in the doctor's office? How about on TV? Is that part of the ad that follows here, the Viagra ad, or the Jardiance ad, or the Lipitor ad on TV? Green leafy vegetables, 1 to 2 times a day. It's been shown to delay cognitive decline by as much as 11 years. So have your greens. So we talk about that a lot more in a different way on the diabetes seminar, but I thought that was pretty exciting. Number 8, take your brain to the spa. What do we mean by that? Rest. When you sleep well, so the brain has these cleanup cells, the housekeeping, the janitorial cells called the glial cells. So when you're asleep, the glial cells, the cleanup crew, is out there doing the cleanup, cleaning up the mess that happened during the day. All the inflammation, all the oxidation stuff, all the bad stress, changes that happened are left behind in the brain, and the glial cells are there doing the mopping up, cleaning up, fixing, and so on, okay? refixing connections. So this wire got fried a little bit. Let's fix it up. We only got a few hours here before the sky wakes up again. Okay, I got to get things tidied up. Chronic lack of sleep then translates into fatigue, brain fog, and impaired memory. And fascinating, when you don't get enough sleep, the housekeeping crew actually isn't able to do all the cleanup, and actually you're left with damaged structures and bad connections, and that leads here to inflammation. So one of the concepts that I learned out of reading that the end of Alzheimer's book, the book I told you is heavy duty. So this amyloid plaque we thought was the cause of dementia. The amyloid plaque is basically a result of inflammation in the brain. And the body's trying to protect itself, saying, hey, I've got this inflammation going on here. Let me cover it up and throw some amyloid so that it doesn't keep irritating other parts of the brain. So it is a marker of inflammation that has been happening here way in the past that we talked about earlier, okay? So when we come with drugs that try to eliminate amyloid plaque, guess what happens? In human studies, brain goes haywire because you're now releasing the protective covering to that inflammation area, that inflammatory spot, and boom, things go bad. That's why a lot of these drugs never make it to market, because we see that things got worse when we try to supposedly fix this amyloid plaque. Oh, you have to see that picture of the baby sleeping. So you can go a long way by, here's some tips. You have trouble sleeping. Cool, dark sleep environment. Underline the dark part. The cool is variable from person to person. You can ask my wife, who did make it, I was back there, okay? Cool is cool, cold for me, okay? I like it cool, where I can feel the cool, but I'm nice and cozy up under the blankets, okay? So the cool, dark, okay? Yeah, so if you're in the city and there's still street lights, get some blinds. The darker the room, the better, okay? And yes.
I got rid of my alarm clock. I don't know what time it is at night, but I got rid of my alarm clock and I sleep much better now in the dark.
So just getting rid of the blue light, which is going to come here in a couple of clicks, the effect of the blue light. Avoid eating foods for at least 3 hours before going to bed. Why? We're not talking in the memory concept, okay? And the diabetes seminar, we'll talk about what it does here for diabetes. But here in this setting, it actually interferes with sleep. You will not sleep well or as well when you have eaten and gone to bed, okay? We want restorative sleep. Restorative sleep, where you go through all the different stages of sleep the way God designed it. So we can zone you out with some Xanax or with some Ambien or anesthesia, okay? And you'll sleep. But it is not restorative because you're skipping through some of those stages the way those medicines work, okay? Having a consistent bedtime and wake-up time. And that, for teenagers, this part is difficult, even on weekends, okay? I remember being a teenager, a college, a med student. Sunday came as my recovery time. Okay, sleep till noon. Okay, so actually, you want to have consistent bedtime and wake up time, even on weekends. I did put it there. Avoiding the screens and the blue light. Yes. Okay. I didn't read my own slide. So, how many of you have a TV in your bedroom? Okay. Let me suggest the easiest thing for you to get good sleep is get rid of that TV in your bedroom and put it in the living room. It is just too easy to be in bed, flip the switch. Now you got a remote. Don't even have to get out of bed. And you are watching TV. And that blue light that comes out of the TV screen affects brain waves. The blue light that we get from our phones, the blue light that you get off of your iPad, your computer, the blue light that you get from alarm clocks, as Terry mentioned, okay, that is stimulating to the brain. You want that blue light in the morning, not at night. At nighttime, how many of you have been around a fireplace? What color of light comes out of the fireplace? Orange, yellow, reddish, the warm colors, right? And how many of you have been just there by your fireplace and you're just, all right? You're just zoned out, right? You just flip the switch and, all right? That's the color of light that soothes, relaxes the brain, and lets you go to sleep. Okay. Yes.
Blue lights keep you from getting REM sleep.
I'm not a sleep specialist. I love saying this in the diabetes seminar. There's a lot of, I love questions, and I love to say, I have no idea. I've gotten comfortable to say, I have no idea. I just know it affects sleep. Which piece, REM, stage 1, 2, 3, I don't know. It just affects sleep. You do not sleep well. I think I got quizzed on it when I took the boards, but yeah, I think we have time for.
Blue light glasses, blue light blocking glasses that I wear for 3 hours before I go to bed. They're over glasses, so they don't have a prescription, but they block out 90%, 97% of blue light. And what a difference in my sleep. Oh my God.
Okay, so they do have these special blue light filter stuff. So I went to my optometrist, and one of my prescriptions, because I work in front of the computer all the time, he said, we've got this new technology. We can put a little blue tint on it to have a little filter. So I paid the extra for it. I didn't notice any difference. But correct, as I'm going to say, the difference between what I got and what you're doing is that you got a very high filter where it's filtering out a lot of that blue light. So if you are one of these smartphone junkies that needs to be on the computer and your phone till late at night, that would be a solution. One of the things I would say is, and we talk about this, I'm not sure if I have it in here, it's just in here. 1 hour before bedtime, turn off the electronics and get into a bedtime ritual. Whatever that ritual is going to be, taking the shower, having your devotional, the family time, reading a book, do something that's obviously you're going to not take an hour brushing your teeth, but do your bedtime ritual an hour before and just flip all the electronics off, go into that routine, and that is part of creating this habit, which you're going to have actually in the next slide. Now I just see it. So sleep aids in memory consolidation also. It is during sleep that the memory begins to glue itself. Okay, so and I've read so many studies and stuff. It's all a big jumble here, but for students, and I've told this here to my kids. Okay, it is imperative to get good sleep. You spent all those hours studying, and if you just sleep 6 hours, you don't get memory consolidation. It went in, kind of stayed there, but it didn't get solidified, didn't get glued together. Okay, so it is better to study a little less and get your 8 hours of sleep where the stuff that you've studied now stays, than studying a lot where it doesn't stay. Okay, if that makes any sense. Number 9, establish healthy routines. So here we talk about circadian rhythms. Circa, close to dia, day, circadian rhythms. The body loves repetition. And the body is set into these cycles, day, night, that started there in Genesis 1. It was a night and day 1, night and day 2. And that cycle, night and day, is what the body loves, okay? Because again, that's how our Creator made us, okay? And so these internal body clock, all related here to sunrise, sunset. And so melatonin gets secreted at nighttime, and I wish we could spend a little more time on that. Cortisol peaks up in the morning. That's the let's get going hormone, and the body again loves that repetition. And if we're staying up late at night, if we're doing different cycles, and I know there's some folks who have to work night shift. Oh, it's like do all you can to find day shift. And some poor folks go days, certain number of days, and then they do nights, and they're off. And it's like, oh my, boy, talk about wreaking havoc on the circadian rhythm. Okay, so it's tough on the body. But so the more repetition you have, the same stuff, same time to get up, same time to go to bed, and the body will love that and include that on weekends also, okay? And so establish a sleep schedule, stick to it. When we talk about exercise, here's some other things that'll help. Take a cold shower in the morning, avoiding caffeine later in the day, avoiding high fat and sugar-rich foods later in the day, and your bedtime ritual that I mentioned already previously. And the other thing is, have a diary next to your bed. That can help you, keep track of good habits, new things that you're doing, things that are helping you in this circadian rhythm and this pattern, and your new habits that you're creating. And find stuff, man, this really did not work. I'm sabotaging myself. Write it down, keep it next to you, and adjust. Adjust along the way. And the last one, number 10, use SMART goals. So habits are more important than aspirations. Sort of going back to what you were saying. New Year's resolutions, great aspirations, right? We're going to conquer the world. But if we can create habits, that is going to be far better than dreaming landing on the moon without the astronaut gear. SMART goals help for the most sustainable and effective habit changes to benefit your brain health. And these allow the brain to know exactly what is expected of it, helps define these goals, and you get like I said, if you do these small little incremental changes, you get these repeated pleasure hits, saying, I liked that. Let me do it again. That felt good. And by the end of the year, you have conquered X, Y, or Z challenge or new habit that you are wanting to create. So again, these habits, we like them, they call them SMART goals. They need to be specific or simple, such as the one that we mention is, so I will lose 5 pounds in 2 months. Let's break it down. It's going to be 2.5 pounds in 1 month, 2.5 pounds the second month. Is that specific? Yes. Is it measurable? Can you measure 2.5 pounds? Yes. Is it attainable? Can you attain losing the 2.5 pounds in a month? A whole lot easier to say 2.5 pounds in a month than saying 20 pounds in a month, right? That's not likely to be attainable. So we want attainable goals, and we want them to be relevant, reasonable, related to what your goal is. And lastly, we want them to be time-bound. Meaning, so I'm going to lose 2.5 pounds. By when? I don't know. 2025. Okay, at least I have a time there. May not be close enough, but so you get the idea. There needs to be a time involved to it. So, like I said, this is an area that I'm still needing to learn more about, but this is from the research I'm reading where the real changes are going to happen, using these small, SMART goals for the bigger objects. And with that, that was my last slide. And we have, it's 7:53 on that clock. It actually is 7:55 by my phone. If you have questions, we'll do 1 minute or 2 minutes of questions if you have any. Yes. A yellow mic.
Are almost interchangeable terms, but I know there's a difference between them. But is there a simple answer for what, if you have dementia, why you don't have Alzheimer's? Or, because that confuses me. And
Yeah.
so many of the symptoms are interchangeable, and the things that you do to
Yeah.
work. And so, is there an easy answer to that question?
So without getting technical, dementia is the catch-all basket, if you may, and there are different types of dementias. The most common one being Alzheimer's type. But there are other types of dementia which all will have the same underlying feature of forgetfulness, but with other manifestations. So for simplicity's sake, we left it there at just interchangeable terms. Just not confuse. It's just technical stuff. They test us on this in boards, so what's PICS, and what's about vascular. Who cares for the common folk, okay? You want something that you can do and change so that you don't get any of these, whatever dementia type you want to call it. So let me close off with the following. We have, and on the way out, if you wish to hear about further seminars, let me just tell you what our health committee talked about. The landscape here for the future months. We've been doing a diabetes reversing seminar for, 5-6 years or so, twice a year. The next one is coming up in 2 weeks. As Pastor said, there's flyers on the way out that you can pick up. If you are interested in coming, you do not have to be a diabetic to come, okay? As we will expand a lot of these things that we talked about, Is there lifestyle health issues that will help not just for diabetes, but will help with heart disease and so on, as well as with dementia or memory loss. If you want to come to that, please give us your name on the way out, because there are materials that we need to get, and I want to make sure I have enough for everybody on that. There's 2 books that we give out as part of that seminar and cost that we charge. We just basically charge for the books. And down the next year, because we'll finish here close to Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, everybody's doing other stuff, right? We want to be with our families, and so do I. So come 2023, we're looking at depression recovery seminar. We're looking at stop smoking. So these are some of the things that we're looking to see, picking up material and putting stuff together. So if you give us your email, that's a whole lot easier for me than to send out an email to everybody, than trying to figure out phone calls and so on. So I thank you for your attention. Pastor, would you dismiss us with prayer tonight?
All right. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you so much again for the wonderful tips that are so tangible. They're within our reach. So we just pray that we could embrace these and find personal benefit and be able to not only experience the benefits ourselves, but to share with others. Thank you again for this, and thank you for the wonderful message and desire you have for our health. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.